Hello everyone, I haven't done one of these old school POV style videos in ages, so I thought I'd spend a day taking photographs on a slow, quiet day to show you how I go about trying to get good photos in a quiet environment. I mainly love photographing in busy streets, focusing on people up close, but sometimes, actually a lot of the time if you don't live in a big city, you're faced with a quiet area, so how do you still make interesting street pictures? Well, for me it comes down to using what's available to you. For example, architecture, light, textures, and trying to make something from that. Here I was lucky that the light was absolutely amazing, so that's what this picture is all about. For those of you who are interested in gear, I'm shooting with the Leica M4 II with Kentmere 400 rated at 600 ISO. I've really been enjoying shooting black and white only for the last few months, and I wrote a bit about this in my blog which you can check out if you're interested. If the streets are quiet like they are here, then I try not to get despondent about it, but switch my mindset. Back when I used to mainly shoot landscapes, there's a landscape photography saying I used to hear a lot, which is shoot to the conditions. Which basically means you can only capture what you can see, so you have to play to the strengths of where you find yourself. Try not to get annoyed if you don't have the environment you want, but instead embrace a different way of working. For example, here I'm focusing on the light hitting the buildings and trying to practice composition to make something visually appealing from what I've got in front of me. I used to do a lot of this kind of street photography when I was just starting out, like a figure walking past a wall for example, and my ideas have moved on a lot since then, but it's still nice to work a little bit slower and make the most out of the environment from time to time. Trying to get up close and make dynamic frames of people can be quite stressful and tiring, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with a slower approach to street photography. Here I thought I'd try to find some people by heading to the shopping area and also maybe get a change of perspective. When it's slow and the streets are quiet, then I just like to explore and treat it as a bit of an adventure. You never know what you're going to see after all. I walked up these steps here to get a different vantage point and try to capture some people walking past in a pleasing way. Nothing special, but I like the contrast. Isolating a figure in silhouette, especially from behind, I haven't really done in absolutely ages, as I've kind of lost interest in that approach to street photography. But here the city really wasn't offering me much, so just to stay present and practice composition and light, I clicked the shutter anyway. Now, when the streets are really dead like this, I like to look for textures that might make for a nice abstract frame. I love abstract painting and I think abstract photography can be really cool too. You never know when you might want a texture from the street as part of a series or a project, or just to have a visually pleasing frame, and here I noticed the light playing on these panels, so I framed up the shot, waited for the light to hit how I wanted it to before I took the photo. It's a really simple image, but I actually really like it, a nice visual note from the day. We had a coffee break here and I missed it on GoPro, but a man ran down the street and dropped this stuffed toy right in the middle of the road. I went out to take a look and thought it looked really sad and forlorn with a bit of an underlying story, so I snapped off the photo. It was interesting to see a lot of cars and bikes and people walk around it, and no one really thought to move it to the side, so I tried to capture it with my camera. Someone eventually did come along and move it though before I went back into the cafe. I also noticed this graffiti that I really liked and thought would be quite striking in black and white. So I tried a composition with someone walking past and also without anyone there at all. And I actually really like this photograph. It's super simple, but I think actually quite powerful. So I'd really love to know which one you prefer, one with a person in it or the one without any people at all. Shooting in black and white only for the last few months has really changed what I look for on the street and how I see scenes. For example, here I like the contrast of this man's light hat, and I thought that would stand out really well from the fancy Parisian cafe vibes of the background. Unfortunately, I missed focus, so it's not as sharp as I'd like, but I still like it anyway. For me, contrast is such a big thing in black and white photography. You can see a great moment, but if all the tones are similar and there isn't any contrast, it can be really hard to capture that moment in black and white, as if there's no contrast, it just all fades together. It's been really great to start to learn this new way of thinking by only shooting in monochrome, and I definitely recommend trying it out if you don't usually. Here I noticed the contrast of the flowers in this lady's bag and tried to make a composition from it. Again, nothing really special, but it's just so fun to be out on the street, observing and making photos. If none of them are good from a day, then that's fine with me. It's just getting out and practicing that makes it so worthwhile. I never regret going out for a photo walk, but always regret it if I end up staying in. I think it's actually one of the few times that FOMO is good. It's the fear of missing out on seeing delightful moments out in the world and trying to capture them with my camera that keeps me going out time and time again, ultimately resulting in making a body of work. The more time you spend out taking photos, the more chance you have of capturing something special. When it's quiet, I find it can often be really hard to know what to actually shoot, and a really easy way to get around this is to just document your day. If you plan on going out and doing something, for example here while I'm visiting Liverpool, we just planned to see a few of the sites, then all I needed to do was just document what I saw and did along the way. You never know then what you might come across and be able to capture with your camera. So for example, we had a destination to go to, which was the famous greenhouse in Sefton Park, and that gave us a reason to go see something and explore it, and then hopefully capture some photographs along the way. It's actually just really fun to look for some sort of still life type photos in this environment. Even though it was quiet, I was in a cool place which really helped to give some subject matter to photograph. I especially like this image of the table with the mirroring of the similar leaves on the tablecloth, the plant in the pot, and the plants growing behind. Again, it's a simple image without any people in it, but sometimes the absence of people in a scene that's designed for people to use can tell a story in itself. Back out on the streets, and I noticed this guy smoking a cigarette outside a pub, which I thought just might add a human element to a normal looking background, with the bollards adding some contrast and graphic shapes. I missed him actually smoking in the first image, so I decided to pass back and snap another shot to see if that one was any better. When it's quiet, while you obviously won't have a crowd to shoot in, you can still find the occasional person to isolate and capture it in a more simple and minimalist frame. Next I decided to head back to the shopping area now it was a little bit later in the day in the hopes to capture some crowds and find some human moments. But when I got there, my head really just wasn't in it. I was definitely in like a slow mode and enjoying a more relaxed approach to street photography. I got a few shots which I'll put up on screen now, but I just hurried through the crowd to find some more minimal and slow scenes instead. I really do find it's a mindset thing. If I'm in the wrong mindset on the street, I rarely get any good photos. As the daylight was starting to fade, I headed down to the docks and the River Mersey in the hopes of some good light and some more minimal scenes. On the way I saw this family passing by and I really liked the moment, so fired off an instinctual shot. I really like the vibes down by the pier head in Liverpool. The architecture is absolutely stunning and it's a beautiful view out over the River Mersey. But it's very wide open and it's hard to get close to people for a photo without bothering them or them sort of noticing you. I saw this person though as I was walking past and thought they looked quite interesting, so I snapped off the shot. Ultimately, they're just sort of sitting there looking at their phones, so it's not really a good photo in the end. Liverpool is of course famous for the Beatles, and there's a statue of them here which I was amazed to find a large queue forming with people waiting to take a selfie. I thought this would be a great opportunity to capture a human moment or two. The first shot I got didn't really work very well, but the next couple I quite like. I got some eye contact in the first one, which is a bit fun, but it's the last one that I like the most. It's a nice balanced composition with a little bit of humour, with one person walking away from the statue while everyone else is there having their photograph taken in front of it. At this point the light started to get really good, but there was just nothing much that was interesting that was catching my eye, so I was just walking round and round in circles, not really seeing anything. So much of street photography is just walking and seeing nothing worth photographing, which can be particularly frustrating when the light's really nice. So after some more wandering around and not really seeing anything, I decided to play to the strengths of the area and head to somewhere that was relatively likely people would check out, and that was one of the telescopes looking out over the River Mersey. I waited for a bit to see if anyone would come and use the telescope to just have a human element and maybe make an interesting composition, and some people did come along and check it out, but didn't really get any good images. But that didn't bother me though, because I was out, the light was nice, I had my camera, I'd done a lot of walking and seen some new things, and that's what it's all about for me. Just as I was about to pack it in for the day though, I noticed this couple sitting down taking selfies and thought that would make a sweet image to end the day. As I hovered behind them, I framed up the scene and noticed the ferry and another person in the background to add to the composition, and I decided to focus in the distance to blur out the foreground a little bit. sort of having a bit more of a classic romantic vibe. Just as I was about to press the shutter, they kiss, which put the cherry on top of the scene, and for me it's probably my favourite image of the day. Let me know if you'd like to see more old school style point of view videos like this in the future, and check out this video next to learn more about how I go about street photography when I'm in a more busy place. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.